pop anything into the chat if you have any questions or anything like that. And you can either do kind of a direct message to me or just kind of out to the class, right? The chat will give you that option. Well, it's 11:01. Looks like and TJ just popped in. How's it going, TJ? I don't know if he can hear me yet. Maybe he can. Yeah. Oh, good.
There we go.
So just a couple of minutes and we'll get started. And I don't see this taking longer than half an hour. I just kind of wanted to pop in, kind of hold everyone's attention for a minute. And that's one of the challenges of an online class, right? This notion of like, sometimes it feels like there's no instructor, or you're like, on my side, sometimes it feels like I'm just putting material out there and, you don't get that immediate feedback. So, maybe a couple of times during the semester we'll do one of these Zoom meetings, but it's definitely not going to be kind of the standard thing, right? Because also you guys take an online class presumably for the flexibility, so you can kind of dip in and out and do the material whenever you've got spare time. So I'm not going to kind of hold you to Tuesday mornings at 11 or anything like that. So, but I did want to do one this week, right? So we're not just starting blind. Okay, so looks like we've got 5 students on here. I think there are 25 students in the class. This is what happens when you tell people that something's voluntary or like not required, right? You get just a few people, but that's okay. I assume that everyone's at work or has something going like that. Another thing to remind yourself of is that I am recording this. So not that that should change anything, but I don't know. Maybe that's just something to keep into mind. Okay, so I wanted to, I guess, kind of quickly introduce myself. And then really my goal today was just to give you guys a feel of what the class is going to be like, kind of like what's the weekly rhythm. And it's going to take us probably a week or two to get into that rhythm. But first of all, my name is Anders Sundell. I'm a geology professor here at College of Western Idaho. I've been here since 2009, which is quite a while now. I was hired as an adjunct back then, and yeah, it wasn't really my plan. Well, I guess world events chose my career path for me. So I had really planned on going into exploration. So I was, my major was structural geology. That probably doesn't mean anything to you. I wanted to map, right? I just wanted to be in the field. Turns out when I graduated was basically right around the time that the financial markets crashed in 2008. And none of those companies were hiring. And so I kind of ended up down a route and ended up at teaching at a community college. And it turns out I love it. And I still get to do some side gig work with the Idaho Geologic Survey. So that's pretty fun to do on top of that. Personal stuff. I got a couple of kids, 2 little boys, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, which is, you can maybe see the dark circles under my eyes. Those 5 years ago, like that was parenthood. Yeah, so if something goes wrong, I'll probably blame it on my children, because that's kind of that's usually my go-to, and it's actually usually true. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what's going on. My wife and I are currently having our house renovated. So for the last 4 months, we've been living in my parents' basement, all 4 of us. So again, we should be back in within a month. So we're doing good. Okay, well, it looks like we've got a few other people on here. I kind of did a basic introduction of myself. I have a short little, I'll actually have to check how I amended it. Maybe a short little assignment that I might have open for 2 weeks, just to kind of, you as individual students can write a little thing about yourself if you're interested. It's not kind of fundamentally important. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, what I really wanted to kind of gather you for, was to give you guys a sense of the class. So hopefully, well, I'm sure if you're taking an online class, you're probably familiar with Blackboard, and that's going to be our. Let's see, I'm struggling with Zoom here. I'm trying to get my shoot. Okay, hold on. I got a button to press. Pin. Okay, there we go. Normally, I don't want to look at myself, but I figure if I'm recording this, students actually want to see me rather than pictures of students sitting there. So you should be familiar with Blackboard. The way that our class is going to go, I try to keep like as intuitive and as seamless as possible. And in doing that, there's not very many places in Blackboard where you're going to find content. The first thing that you're going to find, let's see, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and hop into a screen share really quickly, just to show you what is going on. Man, I am definitely having some problems here. View, screen share. Okay, here we go. So this is our geology Blackboard class. Can everyone see that? You guys can give me a thumbs up, or kind of just casually nod.
Good.
Okay. So, like I said, we're not going to have material in very many places. Really, what I want you to know about is every time you log in, it's going to bring you to this announcements page, as you can see here. All kind of every time I email you guys as a class, I actually do it through the announcements page so that every time you log in, you can see those, but it will also send you an email. Kind of baseline communication. Faculty information, if you want to click on that, there's some material about me. Maybe you care, maybe you don't care. It's an old picture of me. Yeah, and some other information. But mostly it's a way to like find my contact information. Email me. The course syllabus, you're probably going to want to rely on this quite a bit. It's just here in this link. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you is in the assignments tab. That's where basically the whole class exists. So every week you're going to wake up on Monday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, have your cup of coffee and click the assignments tab. Or Wednesday morning, whatever the case may be, right? You can see here, my view is a little bit different than yours. I have a folder here shown for each individual week. But the only one that's in color is the one that you guys can see. So once you click on that, there's videos and quizzes, which is going to be our kind of standard, our standard assignment. There's kind of side assignments, and then there's a reading and a reading quiz. And so we'll talk about all of that stuff here in just a second. Does anybody have any questions about anything so far? You're just kind of absorbing the material that I put out there?
For sure.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, and like I've said, I'm really not going to try to drag you through too much. Oh yeah. So good question. Is it Caesar or Cesar? Do you have a preference? No, you're muted. I can't hear you. But I did get just a message about required textbook. So
I'm sorry about that. But people usually call me Cesar.
Cesar. Okay. I'll remember that. Well, I'll be able to remember that, I'm sure. So yeah, that question that you asked about the textbook is important. And it's going to come up really quickly here. So I'm not going to march through the syllabus point by point with you, but I want to show you the highlights and actually answer Cesar's question. So the syllabus, this is your contract with the class. So I would suggest going and looking through it. But like I said, I'm not sure that it's going to be really worth our time to pick through all of it. But I've got office hours posted here. That's when I'm physically in my office. You can email me, come in and visit me. Also, we can do Zoom meetings, whatever the case may be. So really, that's a long way of saying, if you need to get a hold of me, there's multiple ways. the absolute worst way is to try to call the phone number that's listed for my office. So email is far and away the easiest. Okay, so moving down here, what I wanted to talk to you again about is course materials. So here you guys can see how the course breaks out. Some of these things are going to be really intuitive. Some of them might not make sense. So we're going to have 4 exams over the course of the semester. Those will be taken in an online format, and they're timed, which is kind of how we do that in online, right? So there's a lot of material on the exams. Usually they have a 45-minute time limit, which I assume you've done all the prep. So once the exams open, you can just go through. But you can see that at the end of the semester, that's about 30% of the class. You'll have some one-off assignments. You have one of those this week. We're not going to have those every week, but they'll always have their own dedicated folder, and they'll be really easy to see if that's the case. The bulk of the class is going to be what we call videos and video quizzes. And to show you what I mean, I have to switch screen share really quickly back to Blackboard. Okay, so we're all back in Blackboard, right? You guys can see that? So each week when you log into your assignments, this first folder, videos and quizzes, that's the bulk of your work every week. So if we click on that, what you're going to find is pictures of me before my wife convinced me to do the man bun. So I've got wild hair in all of these videos. But what you can see is as you scroll down, there's a video, and each video has a quiz that's underneath it. It's always important to remember that all of those quiz questions are actually answered in the videos, right? So if you take your time, you should be able to get a 5 out of 5 on every single quiz. My recommendation, and I'm not, I know that everybody has a different workflow. My recommendation is that you figure out a way, whether you open it in 2 different screens or you watch the video on your phone and have the quiz open, somehow have the quiz open while you're watching the video, because also in every single video, I answer the questions sequentially in order, meaning, question number 1, you might watch the video for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, and then you'll hear me mention question number 1, and you can go ahead and click that. And that's important to me because this is the way that the class material will be delivered. And I've written those questions for the most part that you won't actually be able to answer them unless you watch the video, right? So really it's me tricking you into actually watching the videos. There's probably going to be plenty of times where the question is not even geology related. I think there's one about like sweaty cheese, or like I might make a joke in the video and there might be a question about it. So the questions aren't always going to be content, but if you just have the quiz open and you watch the video, you'll be fine. Just as a general heads up, the videos range from about 8 minutes to, there's maybe 2 of them that are 20 minutes long, but mostly they're kind of 8 to 13 minutes, right? And those 20-minute ones, I may actually chop in half this semester. I've been kind of going back and trying to make them a little more bite-sized, which means, you can log in, maybe watch 2 videos, do 2 quizzes, and then you can kind of do that through the course of the week. The workload starts fairly light week 1 and week 2, and then it kind of ramps up week 3 and week 4. So you'll get a sense for that. There'll be slightly more material once we kind of get our feet under us and start learning about some things. Do you guys have any quizzes about that material so far? Oh, my supplemental light went out, so I'm going to be a little bit dark. Sorry, I look kind of spooky. Okay, well, the next thing that we're going to look at is popping back to the syllabus. The other thing that we're going to the other way that we're going to kind of communicate in this class, or one of the big types of assignments that we're going to do, are these reading quizzes. So Cesar asked a question about a textbook, and he was right. He wrote, hey, there is no textbook for this class, and that's true. But there's something called the Fair Use Doctrine, which you may or may not be familiar with. The Fair Use Doctrine says for an educational purpose, you can use one chapter out of a book without paying for it, basically. But once you get beyond that, your students have to buy the book. So each week, you're going to have a reading, which is a chapter out of a kind of a non-collegiate book, right? Kind of out of like a bestsellers, like a more kind of popular literature type of book. You know, for example, this is a book about metals. So we're going to read a chapter out of that when we start talking about metals. This is a book about kind of the geology of your everyday life. There's a chapter that we're going to do out of that. So the readings will be put together and then they'll be posted for you as PDFs. So I'm going to pop back to Blackboard one more time and show you what that looks like. And then we'll be pretty close to finished up here. Well, maybe a couple more minutes. So when we opened the week 1 folder, you saw the videos and quizzes module 1 or video and quizzes folder. There's going to be a bunch of points in there. And then if you look down, there's a reading and reading quiz folder. And so you'll click on that and you'll see 2 links for the reading. These are in PDF format. And then the question. I assume that you have either printed the reading out or have it open on a screen. So this question is, in my mind, like open book, right? But the way that has kind of dealt with is really specific. So the 2 big points that I want to make with reading quizzes and the places where this has gotten messy in the past, in some cases, when you go to download this PDF, it will download the front page and then just kind of sit and you'll just see the spinning icon of death. If that happens, the strangest thing in the world is the solution, and it's to use Microsoft Edge or Microsoft Explorer. I don't know why, but those 2 internet browsers seem to solve all of the problems. So keep that in mind. The next thing is that these are timed. So there's a 15-minute time limit, and you're going to get 2 questions that you have to answer in 15 minutes. I assume that you've already done the reading. So you will have done the reading. You'll see the 2 questions. Then you say, oh, yeah, that was the material. And maybe you'll flip back a few pages and you can write down the content. Like it is an open book format, but it's timed. And they're kind of designed as such that if you've already done the reading, if you put in the half an hour to read it and then started the quiz, you're going to do fine. If you just try to start the quiz and find the information in the reading, you're probably going to struggle. And that's the comment I always get from students at the end of the semester. They're like, well, I tried to cheat on the first 2 reading quizzes and it didn't work. So, you know, if you're ever on campus, you guys can print for free. That would be my suggestion. Come to campus and just print off your readings. Or if you have a printer at home, or again, just open them in a PDF viewer in a window or something like that on your computer. Okay. What's the last thing? So we're going to look back at the syllabus. I promise you we're almost done here. So video quizzes and reading quizzes, those 2 formats of material, that's 650 points. That's almost half of the class just in that material. The lifestyle project we'll talk about later in the term when we get there, but that's a 3-week project. I think it starts week 10, so we probably don't have to worry about it so much right now, but that will be the signature assignment for the class. Exams, like I said, exams are all going to be taken in Blackboard from your own home, but they're going to be timed, right? So that's the way that we kind of, you know, deal with having these open book sorts of exams at home, is you actually have a compressed amount of time, assuming you really have been prepared to do that. if you have a letter of, like if the disability services and I have worked back and forth and you get extended time, of course I'll honor that. You just have to remind me sometimes. Here's our schedule. So you can see, you know, in the beginning, we kind of understanding general resources, energy basics, atmospheric basics, geology basics, and population. That's really our first module. And then once we've kind of put geology in that context, then we're really going to kind of start ripping with content. And so you can see actually from week 5 all the way to week 10. So 5 weeks of this class, we talk about energy. 2 weeks of this class, we talk about metals, gems, agricultural, you know, so again, you can see how all of that material shakes out. And then the readings for each week are listed. Some of the readings I'm changing. I have 2 that I'm changing this semester, so those are listed as TBD because I don't have them formatted yet. Scrolling down through here, this is all kind of boilerplate language. Kind of landing on the signature assignment, which is the lifestyle project. And like I mentioned, weeks. It's a 3-part project, week 10, week 12, and week 14. Those are 50 points each. It doesn't take too much time to do, and we'll talk about it a lot more when we get there. You can also see that it's listed on the syllabus here, week 1, lifestyle, week 2, lifestyle, week 3. So that's the general pace of class. There's let's see, a couple of other things to remember. When you do the timed quizzes, these reading quizzes, and I think I clarify this in a couple of other videos, but those reading quizzes are worth 10 points per week. For each quiz, I've written about 8 different questions. Blackboard will randomly choose 2 for each user. So if you have a friend who's taking the class, which is great, you're likely not going to get the same questions. I mean, you might, right? Just kind of random chance. But everyone's going to get different questions. And then the way that I grade those, I don't want anyone to be kind of in the dark about that. So each question is worth 5 points individually. And because I don't want to introduce too much subjectivity, your response will be given either 0 points, 2.5 points, or the full 5 points. All right, so those are the only 3 scores that are possible on each of those questions. Like, you really missed it. Maybe you kind of got the idea, but left some kind of important details out, or you got full credit, right? So if you see a 2.5 as a score on one question, know that was kind of the middle ground. But I can't justify someone getting a 4 and someone getting a 3, right? It's just splitting it too finely. So I just want you guys to understand how that's how those scores come out. The other general thing is everything is always due Sunday at midnight for every week. So when you open, you know, the week number 1 folder, all of that material needs to be finished at Sunday on midnight, unless it says specifically, right? There might be some cases that are outside of that. And then Cesar had mentioned textbook and said, hey, this class doesn't have a textbook, and that's true because I supply the readings. This is a fairly young class. I think this is the class's 3rd year, so it's like maybe it's the equivalent of like a 18 or a 20-year-old. Like, this is a class still in its youth, still kind of going through some changes, and you'll likely see a couple of those, but hopefully not too many. But when I first put this class together, I scaffolded it based on this textbook called Earth's Natural Resources. I've put the information here, so if you want to get that textbook, you can. That was what I used to kind of structure the class, and then it's kind of drifted since then. But there's a lot of great information in that book. And I would actually encourage you to see if you could find it on Amazon for cheap or something like that. But I'm definitely not going to require it, right? If you were to get it, it would just be another resource that you had that would help you prepare for exams and things like that. But definitely not required. What's the last thing that I did and I made and I haven't posted it yet, so I feel bad about that. Let me show you. Shoot, I may not actually be able to show you this. Let me see if my files have updated. Yeah, well, I'll post an announcement later. So one of the things that I have done this semester, kind of help you out, and I'm getting a warning here, I'm probably gonna have to shut down. I've made a document, it's a 3-page document that gives the title of every video and the time. So if you're trying to go back and find like, where was it that we were talking about this material? I have kind of a table of contents of all of the videos of the whole class. So you'll be able to quickly say, oh, that was from week 3, this video. And so you'll be able to navigate to that video and find it. So it'll give you a little bit of a roadmap. Okay, I'm gonna pop out of screen share and go back to general view. My computer's not plugged in and it just reminded me that it's not plugged in. It's kind of a long story of setting up at the desk here. So if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat or just ask them.
Yeah, I do have one question about the reading quizzes.
Sure. Yeah, please.
If we don't get full credit on the reading quiz, so if we get a 2.5, like you mentioned, will you provide feedback kind of indicating why?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's actually a great point. So TJ, I would appreciate anyone looking out for this. So you should get feedback and it will give you kind of the content that I was looking for. If you don't, I've had a problem in Blackboard making sure that feedback gets to students because sometimes the right boxes have to be clicked. So if you do get no feedback, let me know and I'll make sure that you can access that. So I had a problem with that last semester where 2 exams went by and the students didn't get any feedback, but I had spent hours like writing feedback, and none of them got it. And I felt like we all lose, right? We all lose in that situation. Yes, so that's true. The last thing before I part ways, and this is in the syllabus and I'll mention it again. The late work policy, the only thing that's allowed as late work are the video quizzes. Everything else, if you missed it, you missed it. But the video quizzes, because they're so important to the